Hello everybody and welcome back to another Oscar prediction video where today I will be taking a look at the category of Best Production Design. So this is one of those categories that I think looks more complicated than it actually is. It looks more competitive than it actually is, mainly because of the high caliber of talent that is on display in this category. But I think when it comes to what is actually going to win, the precursors so far seem to show an easy frontrunner. And I really don't think it's going to be that more complicated, but I do want to single out the intense caliber of work that is on display here. Just like with Best Makeup, this is a category where even if the winner is somewhat set in stone, that doesn't mean that the other four nominees aren't all worthy. These are truly, truly inspired nominees, and this is a great lineup overall, but I do think the winner is pretty easy to guess. But let's get right into it. Fifth most likely to win is Conclave. Production designer Susie Davies, who is on her second nomination after Mr. Turner, and set decorator Cynthia Slider, who is on her first nomination. So this movie takes place entirely in and around the Vatican, which obviously the filmmakers were not allowed to film in. So much like the two popes back in 2019, the filmmakers had to completely recreate the Vatican from scratch, and it looks pretty spectacular. Like, you would not be able to guess that they didn't actually shoot in the Vatican. It looks so dead on. My dad, when watching the film, was legitimately fooled into thinking they did shoot in the Vatican. Now, one can argue that after the two popes did this, it's not as impressive a feat, but still, it does look very, very accurate, and the sets look a lot bigger than the two popes did. I don't know how big these sets actually are. I don't know if there was some CGI set extension that was used, because if there is, it's extremely subtle. There's no denying that the movie does look pretty incredible. But with that said, I do think it's the least likely to win. It's contemporary, and plus it's recreating something that already exists and you can visit right now, and so there's not a lot of creativity, much like when I talked about this film in the costume design category. Yes, it looks nice, yes, the nomination makes sense, but I don't know, compared to the other four nominees that had to create worlds from scratch, this is just a recreation of something that already exists. And yes, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it, but it just seems like the less impressive feat compared to the other nominees. So I do think it's the least likely to win. Fourth most likely to win is Dune Part 2. Production designer Patrice Vernet, who was a previous winner in this category for the original Dune, and set decorator Shane Veo, who surprisingly did not work on the original Dune, but is still an Oscar winner for The Shape of Water. I honestly can't believe I'm ranking this in fourth place, because the original won, and this looks just as good, if not better. There's a lot of new locations, like the Harkin Arena that we see. It's really, really well designed and really, really great work. Amazing world building. This should be in contention to win, and the fact that it's not really has to do with a couple of factors. One, the original movie did win, and this movie got way less nominations. The original got 10, this one got 5. And it just feels like diminishing returns, considering the fact that not only have we done this before, but also the movie came out back in March, and it's not at the top of voters' minds. And I just feel like in this particular category, there is a lot of respect for the production design, hence why it's here. But the fact that the costume design and editing of the film could not show up here really proves that the film has fallen out of favor. And so, while I do think it's the frontrunner for visual effects, and maybe sound, we'll get to that category later, it's not winning anything more than that, and it's not winning this category, despite the fact that it would be a deserving winner. It's just not the sort of thing that they're going to go for again. A really fantastic work, truly fantastic work, but I think because of how strong the top three are, the Academy is going to feel like, we've done this before, and not reward it. Third most likely to win is Nosferatu. Production designer Craig Lethrop and set decorator Beatrice Brent-Nerova, both of whom are on their first nomination, which is a little surprising, I gotta be honest, because they've both worked with this director Robert Eggers before, and really it's shocking that Eggers has not gotten any of his previous films nominated for production design, because they all look amazing, and Eggers just has this he has such a keen eye for period accuracy in his films. All of his movies really do transport you back to a certain period of time, which is astonishing because they all have some sort of supernatural element to them as well. So it's really, it's really amazing to see all of his films come together, and it's great that this movie has been rewarded with a production design nomination. This movie just looks absolutely stunning because it harkens back to the original Nosferatu that came out over 100 years ago, while also feeling like its own thing and feeling like it's taking advantage of the modern tricks of cinema today. And it really does look outstanding. This is a beautiful, beautiful looking film, and they did build some great exterior sets, which normally would really help the film out. It is the only movie on this lineup that is not in Best Picture, and I think that this category does tend to favor Best Picture nominees more so than costume design. But it's not entirely impossible that it could get enough votes to win, but I don't know how many precursors it has. And I think that, well, that's it. Just based on the precursors and based on the narratives that the top two have, I don't think that this... I think if this movie gets a win, it's going to be for cinematography. And I think that as bold and as stunning as it looks, it is number 3 just in virtue of how strong the competition is, which really, really sucks, but sometimes that's the way it is. Second most likely to win is The Brutalist. Production designer Judy Becker, who was previously nominated for American Hustle, and set decorator Patricia Cukia, who was on her first nomination. So, this movie is really, really interesting because this is a 3.5-hour period epic that was made for about $7 million, which is absolutely insane. And going into the movie, knowing the budget, I was really, really curious how they were going to cheat it. And what they did, which is really, really interesting, this movie does not have the same kind of huge wide shots that show off the amazing giant set the way that you would see in Nosferatu or Dune or the number 1 movie on this list. The camera work in this movie is very intimate and very close on the characters, and that is technically more a feat of cinematography than production design, but they did have to build sets, just not as much of a set as they would have to build for some of the other movies. They just have to show you just enough to convince you that this is a period setting without going really far into it. And while that is more a feat of the director and the cinematography, and that's what makes the film so awe-inspiring, the production design is a big part of that. And it's also worth pointing out that this movie is about a character who is an architect, and we do see the literal process of how he designs buildings, starting with sketches, going to scale models, and ultimately the full-scale construction. And obviously there is a difference between designing a building and designing a set for a movie, but it's close enough that some production designers might watch this and go, ooh, I feel seen by this. So that's why I do think it is a very reasonable runner-up for the category, and might pull off a shocking upset victory if the movie is more beloved than we think and manages to take picture. But for some reason, I don't know, because when I actually look at it and compare it to the other nominees, it's not nearly as flashy. And there are some really, really flashy movies in both Dune and Nosferatu, and Brutalist, it just doesn't have quite that same feeling to it. And it looks amazing. It really does. And I think if it were to win, it would be more because of the narrative of what they had to do to make it feel bigger than it is. But again, I just can't help but feel that that's more an achievement of the director and the cinematographer, and the production designer is a very important part of that, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to carry it over to the win. And when I really look at it, the movie that is in the number 1 position to win this category is Wicked. Production designer Nathan Crowley, who is on his 7th nomination without a win, and set decorator Lee Sandales, who is on his 3rd nomination without a win. So that in and of itself already gives the movie a boost, but the reason why I think it's going to win, outside of the fact that it's a Best Picture nominee that is very beloved, the sets of this movie are absolutely insane. Like, I don't know if you've seen the behind the scenes videos of this, but they show you the scope of the sets. I'm sure you've heard about the 9 million tulips that were planted from Munchkinland, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Like, the set for Shiz University is maybe one of the biggest sets that I've seen ever constructed for any movie, period. And then you have the dorms, you have the Ozdust Ballroom, you have the Emerald City, you have the Wizard's Chambers. Every set in this movie just makes you go, wow. It really does stand out, not only in how big everything is, but also the amount of detail everywhere and the use that they get out of every corner. It just feels like such a lived-in world that not only calls back to the production design of the stage musical, which won the Tony for scenic design, but also the production design of the original 1939 movie, which is one of the most classic, beloved films of all time, and this truly does feel like the same world. It's a massive, massive feat of production design. And while some have complained that it's not as colorful as the 1939 movie, that's more of a criticism of the cinematography than the production design. I think most people can agree that the production design of this movie is really quite astonishing. And I would be pretty shocked if this did not end up winning the Oscar. I think even though Dune and Nosferatu and Brutalist are all worthy in their own way, I do think what Nathan Crowley accomplishes in Wicked, in both a macro and micro sense, the sets are so big and so detailed, and every single set is helping to tell the story. This is what you go for, and this already won the Critics' Choice Award. I am recording this prior to the BAFTAs, but I can't imagine this losing. I think it's just too big to fail, and a lot of people have been comparing Wicked to Barbie, and that, of course, lost production design and scenic design and costume design when I didn't think it would. But this movie does not have a Poor Things directly competing with it. One could argue Nosferatu, but that's not in Best Picture. I just feel like this is destined to take both production design and scenic design, whether costume design. I am so tired. I'm recording this at like 2 a.m, by the way. It's just destined to take this award, and I would not want to bet against it. So thank you very much for watching this. I am going to go to bed now, but tune in next time when I take a look at the category of Best Documentary Feature. See you then.